All right, it says we're live, so we're going to get started. And this evening, we're going to be talking about Easter Sunday is just a couple days away. I believe Christ died today on Thursday, not on Friday. I believe he died on Thursday. There's really no other way for the math to math. 3 days and 3 nights except on Thursday. So we're going to talk about how many people were at the tomb Resurrection Sunday. We're going to look at the witnesses that saw the stone rolled away. We're going to look at a couple people that should have been there that were not. All of these add to the validity of the account. Most of us never even consider how many were there. We hear that Mary was there and John was there or Peter, and we just move on. Most of us just pay attention to the Easter Day account as a fond memory and we move on. But there's significance in the number of people who were at the tomb and saw the risen Savior. God's law, Moses' law, the law that God gave Moses, says 2 or 3 witnesses to bring a matter against someone. 2 or 3 witnesses for the veracity of a thing. One person could lie, but that was not enough for proof. It must have 2 or 3 to be able to be counted as a reliable account. Deuteronomy 17:6, at the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death. But at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. 1 witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity, or for any sin, in any sin that he sinneth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established. So in order for God to follow his own law, and his law is the only one that matters, just so you know, but for God, he has to honor his law. Jesus did not come to abolish the law. Jesus came to fulfill the law, and in so doing, he must meet the requirements of that law. And that law was 2 or 3 witnesses for a matter to be true. He cannot break the very law he gave. He can't. His law is immutable. So by this, we need 2 or 3 witnesses. Well, God doubles that. We have 5 women who came to prepare the body of Jesus that they saw die on the cross. Then we had Peter and John also there. In the Old Testament, 2 witnesses or 3 were needed. Here, we are given 7. And 2 that should have been there, at least 2 that should have been there, but were not. Double the number needed for veracity. We had Mary Magdalene, the one who Christ cast 7 demons out of. We have Salome, the wife of Zebedee. We have Mary, the wife of Alphaeus. We have Joanna, the wife of a steward in King Herod's house. And Mary, the mother of Jesus. At least 5 women, and I say at least because these are just the ones that are named in the Bible. At least 5 women went to the sepulcher and they saw the empty tomb. Then the 5 went and told the disciples. Peter and John, hearing this, then ran to the tomb. So we now have 7 people named as witnesses to the empty tomb. 7. Double the 2 or 3 needed. Now, at the cross, these women were listed in attendance at the death. So not only did they come to the tomb, they were there and watched him die. They watched him beaten, bloody, hanging in midair, suspended above man, but below God, all by himself in midair. And these women followed him. These women believed in him. They followed him every step. They were changed by him. These women who saw him die Thursday, put into the tomb. They came to the tomb Sunday morning, Resurrection Day. They came to minister to him one last time. They came to see the body and to treat the body with love and care. Even though they thought he was dead, they came to care for him. They still loved him. Now, for any of you that believe he was asleep or in a coma, on the cross, there are those who claim that he fell into a coma, that he went to sleep, and that he truly didn't die. Mistakes are being made there, because these women, they were at the cross. They saw him die. They watched him, they knew him, and they followed his body to the tomb. They saw where he was buried, and they marked it in their minds because they were coming back. They were going to ensure that he was taken care of in death, that they were going to dress the body as was the custom of the Jews at that time. But Jesus made sure in his death that they were taken care of. They were going to the tomb to take care of him. Now, these women were so certain that he was dead that they brought all the materials needed to embalm the body according to their custom. Now, it's not what we call embalming now, where they take all the organs out. They put ointments and spices and things like that to keep the stink from reaching out. In Luke 24:1, upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. So they brought the spices that they had to prepare to apply to the body, to follow the customs and the traditions. They believed he was dead. They thought he was dead. They were at the cross. They saw him die. And they brought what they needed to prepare his body for burial. Remember, they couldn't because it was the Sabbath, the high Sabbath, Passover. They couldn't prepare the body then because it would have broke Jewish law. So they had to wait until the first day of the week when the Sabbath was over. So the high Sabbath started Thursday night, Passover. So that would have been Friday. And then the actual Sabbath, Saturday, which is the seventh day, the day of rest, and then Sunday. So Thursday he died. That means Friday night, Friday morning. Remember, the Jewish calendar is backwards. Their night starts, their night starts at 6 p.m. first. So Friday night for them started Thursday evening at 6. So 3 days and 3 nights, right? Friday night, Friday. Saturday night, Saturday. Sunday night, Sunday. Crack of dawn, daybreak, 3 days, 3 nights. That's the only explanation that works. The Sabbath that he died just before was Passover, not the Sabbath day of rest, which is a weekly Sabbath. It was a high Sabbath day, the Passover, because the Passover meal was the one they celebrated the night before he was killed. I don't know why this is so hard to figure out, but everybody has issues with that, so hopefully that gives you some clarification. Now we celebrate Good Friday, we celebrate Easter Sunday, we celebrate Palm Sunday, and okay. But in order for the Bible to be true, it had to be Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock that he died. And they took him off that cross and got him into that tomb before 6 p.m. Thursday night. For 6 p.m. Thursday for Friday night to begin at 6 o'clock. How it had to be. So the women are coming. They saw him die. He died too close to the Passover for them to be able to dress the body. So they had to wait. Now the first day of the week, Sunday morning, they are going with the embalming spices that they had prepared. Notice that they had prepared. They honestly believed, they didn't just bring ointment, they had to prepare things. They honestly believed he was dead. Now, if these women truly believed he was just in a coma, they would never have wasted the spices and the ointments that cost a lifetime of money. They would not have been going to the tomb to prepare the body if they thought he had just fallen asleep. They would not have been shocked to see the body missing if they thought he was asleep. They wouldn't have been crying because they couldn't find the body if they thought he was in a coma. They would have known he just woke up and drifted away. And they definitely would not have run to tell the other 11 that the body wasn't there. The other 11 would have already known. No, they thought he was dead. These women were faithful to Christ. Even though they thought he was dead, they were coming to prepare his body. They were faithful even though all their hopes and dreams died on the cross with him as far as they knew. They were faithful even though they no longer had a reason to believe, even though they had no reason to go and see this man in the grave because he's dead. He's not all that he promised. They did it because they had faith. They believed. They watched him suffer. They watched him die. The one they thought was the Messiah. His own mother thought he was dead and gone, even though she knew he was the Messiah, God in human flesh. God himself with the angels told her Jesus was the Messiah. But this is something we often forget when we talk about these folks way back when. Other than Lazarus, nobody ever came back from the dead back then. Doesn't happen too often today either, does it? We saw somebody die, we're going to believe they're dead 4 days later. They saw him die. They saw him get buried. They had to because they didn't know where the grave was to come back that Sunday morning. And he rose again. That they didn't see. But we know the tomb was empty because we have eyewitnesses, 7 of them, to tell us this. We have more than 3 which meets the requirements of God's law. We have recorded proof, names that you can track historically. Now, God doesn't say it's only true if the doctors and the lawyers say it is. God doesn't say it's only true if people thousands of years later believe it. No. God didn't say it's true if the scientists can prove it. No. God said it's true. And then he had 7 witnesses listed by name there to tell us it's true. God said it's true. We have the written word that tells us of 7 who saw it. Then we have 500 who saw him after that in the upper room. We have Peter, Paul, John, James, men who saw the risen Savior. And how do we know that? Because they died for him. If he had died, they wouldn't have continued on in the lie they had concocted. If Jesus had truly died and not risen again, they wouldn't have suffered and bled for him. But all those witnesses, the 7 named who went to the empty tomb, those in the upper room, all of them attested to that fact. Most of them with their very lives. And to have this many written witnesses, at this point, if you do not believe that Christ rose again, it is only because you don't want to. There's truth. There's proof. There's empirical evidence. The tomb of Christ is empty today. The borrowed tomb of Joseph Arimathea that Christ used for a weekend is empty. The women, faithful even in his death, faithful as he was dying, they were rewarded and allowed to be the bearers of the resurrection news. These women, which women were not granted anything way back then, they were granted the privilege of seeing Jesus as he was buried, and then to see the empty tomb where he had lain. They were met by the angel who told them he's not here, for he is risen. They were faithful and they were true to their calling, and he was faithful and true to his word, and he rose again. We know we serve a risen Savior and that he lives today. We have verified evidence that it is so. If you're listening to this and you don't believe or you don't think so, call out sincerely. That's the key word. Sincerely call out. Ask him to reveal himself. And if you were searching, if you were seeking, he will. Don't do it flippantly. Don't do it as a card trick or as a genie, but as the God of the universe, the lover of your soul, the one who died for you. He has revealed himself to so many who were sought after him. But just as an aside, just as a little further evidence, do you know who was not at the tomb on that Easter morning? There should have been at least 2 more. I'm going to say 3 or 4, but I know at least 2 more who were not there that should have been there. Matthew 27:62. Now the next day that followed the day of the preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that deceiver said, while he was yet alive, after 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day. Be made sure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say unto the people, he is risen from the dead. So the last error shall be worse than the first. Pilate said unto them, you have a watch. Go your way and make it as sure as you can. So they went, they made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. That's not this. We're not setting this watch. We're setting people, professional Roman soldiers, over this grave to watch to make sure that body is not stolen. The soldiers that were paid to watch, that were paid to be there for 3 days. And it says right here, command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day. That was in the orders given to the soldiers. 3rd day. The soldiers that were paid to watch and to be there for 3 days, probably a revolving watch so that they were fresh. That's how most watches do it. You're there for 4, 6, 8 hours, and then you switch off. Those soldiers, they were no longer at the tomb when the women showed up. And how do we know? Because Peter and John ran right straight into the tomb. The women were not restrained from going to the tomb. The soldiers never spoke to the women. The angels did. Soldiers whose very lives were forfeit because the body's not there anymore were no longer on watch. They ran away. Roman soldiers, professionals, known throughout the world at that time as the most disciplined fighting men. They were gone. They disobeyed orders. And what did that mean for them? That meant death. Something scared those soldiers. Something ran those soldiers off. The women who saw him and were faithful, and the soldiers the women didn't see. Witnesses to the events of a lifetime. Those soldiers were given to the Jews, the religious elite, to put a watch over that tomb, to seal that stone. They knew what they were doing. They were professionals. They were not there when the women showed up. They were not there when Peter and John showed up. They were not there to keep them away from the tomb, to keep them out of the tomb. Where did they go? Jesus rose from the dead. The stone was rolled away. And those soldiers, they hightailed it out of there. Irrefutable proofs. The resurrection of Christ. If you're not certain, pull out Matthew. Read the book of Matthew. Search for him. Seek him. Call on him sincerely. And he will show you the truth. I guarantee it. So many proofs. If you don't believe it, it's only because you don't want to.